Welcome back to the Unbreakable Me Podcast. I'm your host, Maddie, and this here is the place where rock bottom has built more heroes than any privilege ever could. So I've been trying to decide what I should do for my first few episodes, and I decided, well, I think that it's really important that you guys get to know who I am and that you get to understand where I've come from and what rock bottoms I've hit, because I've had a couple. I'm just going to start from the start. I come from a very privileged family. Me and my sister grew up in a loving household. Our mum, a dad. We grew up in essentially a mini mansion of sorts. We went to private schools. I was bought my first brand new car. I had a very privileged childhood, and I'm not going to say that I didn't. Very loving parents. I had a very active high school. I had a very active lifestyle. We were very active members in Nippers. We were down the Gold Coast every weekend. I'm not even sure why we didn't just live there. But we had very, very, very privileged lives. We were able to do whatever sport we wanted. We were able to do a lot of things. But just because you're born into privilege doesn't mean that you aren't going to be faced with adversity. And adversity, I tell you, is exactly what I was faced with multiple times in my life that have now built me to be the person that is a lot more compassionate and a lot more patient with people in the world. So apart from having a really good childhood, we were able to go on holidays. We were able to do lots of things. And there was one particular holiday at the age of 13 that I went on with my mum and my sister and some other family members. My dad wasn't able to be there. He had to work. He had his own business. He wasn't able to be there. But my mum and my sister went away. And unfortunately, on that holiday, I was sexually assaulted. It was a sexual assault that occurred over multiple days. Multiple evenings. And at the young age of 13, I decided on that holiday I would keep it a secret. I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to ruin anyone's holiday, essentially. The only person that I told on that holiday trip was my sister, who at the time was 11. She helped me navigate the situation, and I'm forever grateful to her for that. And I'm sure that at the very young age of 11, it really did put a lot of emotional stress and tie on her to do that, because I swore her not to tell anyone on that holiday because, like I said, I felt like I was ruining other people's holiday if I told them what was going on. So anyway, at this stage, at 13, I was a very active child. So I ran a lot. I ran with my dad a lot. I did nippers a lot. I did hockey a lot. I was going to the gym of afternoons. I was dancing. I was doing all the things. So when this happened, I very much lent into those areas of my life. I lent into my running. I lent into movement as a way of coping, which I still do. I use it a lot still to control any anxiety that I might have. And I overdid it. I ran a lot. I went to the gym a lot. And I slowly started to use movement and the food that I was eating as a way of coping with what was happening or what had happened. Over a very short period of time after the incident, I'd lost a significant amount of weight, and I was going to the gym after school. I was doing Les Mills classes, and I was doing, running and on the cross trainer for half an hour before and half an hour after, and then I was running in the afternoons, and I was doing all these things, and I was losing weight, and I'd started to create rules around what I could and couldn't eat. And the first rule that I had created was that I could only eat 5 things a day. That was it. I could only eat 5 things a day, and that was all that I could have. Now, whatever those things consist of, one thing might have been an apple. The other thing might have been a packet of lollies. Keep in mind, I was 13. The other thing may have been the dinner meal. Okay. So it was a basic rule of thumb. But during this time, I started to lose weight and my family started to notice. And I was taken to a local psychologist to find out what was going on. What was going on with Maddie? Something's wrong. She's not herself. my mum and dad could see that something was wrong. And at this first appointment, it was at the Sunnybank Hills Medical Center. And I can't remember the psychologist's name, but she was kind of like the counselor there. And as soon as I walked in there, I think she asked me a few questions and I just fell apart. And I just told her everything. I can't remember exactly how long after the holiday it was that I'd been to this appointment. I can't remember the exact amount of time that had passed. It wasn't too much time, but I blurted it all out. She then brought my mum into the room. She then helped me tell my mum about what had gone on. My poor mum just fell apart, feeling like, how could this happen to my young girl? And why didn't you tell me we were on the holiday? And all those things that mothers do, blaming themselves. And then we had to go home and tell dad. Now, when we went to go home and tell dad, I can still remember looking at him and feeling like I could just see the life drain out of him. It was just like he felt like he had just failed his little girl, which he didn't by any means. By any means. He definitely didn't fail his little girl. He wasn't there. Could have he found me? But I can still remember how angry he was about what had happened. And we then unfortunately had to start, well, not unfortunately, we then had to start the process of criminal charges against this person because we did know this person. My mum had to stop my dad from jumping on an aeroplane and flying down to deal with this individual, which he never did, obviously. It would have been the right thing to do. But we had to start then the very long process of court proceedings and having this person charged. And we did. This person will never have the opportunity to work with children. This person had to endure many years of embarrassment, where he had to check into police stations, and he will forever be known as a sexual predator. Now, the reason that that's an important part of the story is because it is where my domino fell, and I honestly believe it is where the first domino of my dad's story fell. So it's important for it to be mentioned. After the proceedings occurred where we had this particular individual charged, my coping mechanism, controlling my food, over exercising, really ramped up. It was a thing that just made me feel like I had everything under control. Like I could just forget it all. If I can just control this and I can just get that to happen, then everything will be fine. And anyway, after all these things happened, my mum actually went away on an overseas holiday, and I can still remember taking her to the airport. I can remember her being not sure whether or not she should go because everyone could see that I was quite unwell. I think at 13, I was roughly about 48 kilos. And by the time she left, I think I was down at around 42 kilos. So I was quite thin. I wasn't sickly yet, really, but I was quite, they could see that something was very wrong, most 13-year-olds don't just lose 6 kilos in a few months. Anyway, she ended up going. We'll be fine. Everything will be fine. You go, you enjoy your holiday. You've never done anything like this. You're going with your friend. You go overseas. You go to Europe. You enjoy your time. You deserve this. Go. I'll be fine. Me and Dad and Tyler will be fine. And anyway, while she was overseas, I can't remember exactly how many weeks in, maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, I was getting Dad to drop me at dancing, and he was dropping me at, he was dropping me at the gym, and, he was taking me to all these things. And he was always expressing his concern with, you're doing too much. You're losing weight. You're not eating enough, and I was able to hide a lot of it from them at the start, oh, Dad, I've already had breakfast. I ate before you got up this morning. Or, oh, no, I ate a big lunch at school today. I don't need afternoon tea. Or, it was very easy to hide the fact that I wasn't eating at the start because, there wasn't, no one really understood what was going on. So I would tell him, I'm fine, just drop me at the gym. And there was one time when Mum was overseas and he was driving me to the gym and he burst into tears. I still remember it. He was dropping me at the gym that was inside I can't remember what it was called, but it was a gym. It was inside a shopping centre. The Les Mills classes and that stuff. We were on the top. He drove up the ramp to drop me out the front of that top car park. And he burst into tears. I can't remember exactly what he said, but something along the lines of, I don't think you should go in there. I don't think that you should be doing any of these things anymore. We need to take you to a doctor. And I remember seeing him so upset, and I said something like, I know. And something's wrong. But anyway, I didn't end up getting out the car. We ended up going home. But the next day, I think he took me to the doctor, my first ever doctor's appointment. Again, it was at the same place, Sunnybank Hills Medical Centre. And I saw a lady doctor. I can't remember what her name was. And we went in there, she said, she started talking about eating disorders and anorexia and all these things. What you're about, like, I'm fine. And she weighed me, and I think at this particular time, when she weighed me, I was about 38 kilos or something. So I lost about 10 kilos. They say my mom's still overseas. And the lady said, look, we'll try and get this under control before, we talk about hospital. I remember thinking, hospital, like, calm the fuck down. We don't need hospital, we'll be fine. We're going to book you with a dietitian. We're going to book you in with the me once a week, the dietitian, psychologist, and we'll see this under control. I'm just going to, and I'll get some advice, And off I went, and I had all the appointments booked, and we'd just driven away. We'd only just got down the street, and Dad's phone rang. And it was this lady, the same doctor, and she said, I've just spoken to one of the leading psychiatrists for eating disorders in Australia at the Maddie Children's Hospital, and I've told him what her obs are, her weight is, all of her things, and he has said she is to get to the hospital immediately. You are to go to the emergency ward right now, and she will be admitted. And I remember thinking, the fuck is going on? What's wrong with these people? Like, I don't need a fucking hospital. Just need a feed. Anyway, we got to the hospital, and they started talking about nasogastric feeding, and we weren't going to do that yet. And then we get up to the ward, and I remember my first experience was at night time too. I'd been in an emergency ward all day, and my dad had to go and pick up my sister. Like, been there for hours. And I remember I was up on the ward. My dad had to go home. He had my sister, and they had to put in a feeding tube for the first time, where they stick it up your nose, goes down the back of your throat. And I remember it being the most traumatic experience ever. It was horrible. I was there by myself, because Dad had to go meet with Tyler, and then it all just sort of went from there. There was, medical admissions, and then after the medical admission, then you end up in what they call the Kim's ward, which is a locked child psychiatric ward. It's almost the equivalent of jail. My mum came back from overseas a mess. I had to finish out her holiday, obviously. You can't just fly back. She was on the Kentucky tour and all that sort of stuff, And I recently I recently found out that for many years, and this is the thing when you have an eating disorder, when you have something like this, you're so consumed with your own bullshit and your own illness. And it's such a manipulative illness, so overbearing. The noise is so loud that you don't know and you don't understand the pain that's going on around you. And I found out recently that there was many months when my mum got back that my dad didn't even talk to my mum because he blamed her for my illness. He blamed her for what had happened. He blamed her for not being there. And that's a whole, no ill feelings towards my mum or my dad. Please don't think that I do. But everyone needs someone to blame, I guess. And it's such a horrible situation to be in where you've just found out that your daughter's been sexually assaulted for days upon days on a holiday. No one was there to protect her. She was holding this secret, and now she's literally dying in front of you as a way of coping with this thing. So everyone's looking for someone to blame. Everyone's looking for a way to cope, and that's fine. But I now hold that guilt. No, I'll forever hold that guilt. That my illness was one of the first dominoes that fell. That potentially led to my dad's suicide in 2015. There was many others, and I'll tell the rest of the story in episodes to come. But I honestly believe that this is one of the first dominoes. It's the first domino that fell that affected my health, my mum and dad's marriage. It was the first thing that I believe made my dad feel like he'd failed. That first domino that fell, and it destroyed my relationship with my friends, destroyed my relationship with my sister. It tore my dad's relationship to pieces for years because I pushed him away while I was sick. Because if you've never suffered from an eating disorder, I've never known anyone that's had anorexia, it is extremely manipulative. Like I said before, it's very loud. There's a lot. There's a lot that happens in your head. You're very self-absorbed because you've got these interests that need to be met because of all these voices, or not voices, these thoughts that are in your head that their interests need to be met. Otherwise, it's unbearable. I can remember sitting on beds, banging my head up against walls and up against my hands in hospital just to make the fucking noise stop. But that's where it all started. I went from a beautiful, solid family unit with all of the opportunity and all of the privilege to this one incident that occurred where somebody thought they had the fucking right to do what they did, that then snowballed my life, my mum's life, my sister's life, my dad's fucking life. It just snowballed things for years. And that's why I started this podcast. Because I want you to know my story. because I don't want you to know how it went from a loving childhood to tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, mistake after mistake, to then coming out and being back on top. Because if you as well are someone that is fucking struggling, and if you are someone that is at the bottom of the barrel, if you are at rock bottom right now, then I want you to know that you can and you will get the fuck out of there. I want my story and other stories that will be told on this podcast to give you hope and inspiration. Because sometimes, and I can remember times at different points in my life where I've made bad choices, my illness, my addiction, which I'll go into later episodes, feeling like there was just no way out, and there is. You can get out of it. You don't need to end life. You don't need to stay homeless. You don't need to stay in your illness. You don't have to let the thoughts become so fucking overwhelming that you're banging your head against a fucking wall or a glass door. You don't need to be there. There are plenty of people that have overcome those things. And if you're someone that is there right now, you can too. So please continue to tune in, because I will finish my story. I will finish telling you the things that have happened to me in an honest, raw way over the next few episodes. And then I will bring on other people to tell their stories. And if you would like to share yours, then please reach out. Because we here at the Unbreakable Me Podcast are making sure that people today feel heard, they feel listened to, they feel seen, and they feel supported. We got you guys. Talk to you soon.